This episode of Brace for Impact is brought to you with the support of Ranmore Fund Management Limited. Ranmore are an independent UK investment firm applying a value-driven investment philosophy to global equities. It's focused on generating real returns for clients. Capital is at risk. Please see ranmorefunds.com for more details. Welcome to Series 2 of Brace for Impact, the podcast where we champion modern philanthropy in a changing world. I'm Mary Rosegunn, founder and chief exec of The Four, the UK's only venture philanthropy fund backing the best small charities and social enterprises. And for my guest today, I'm delighted to welcome Camilla Wallace, senior partner at Wedlake Bell. Camilla is widely recognised as one of the UK's leading private client lawyers. She was named Tax and Trusts Lawyer of the Year at the 2024 Spears Awards. She was listed for many years among ePrivate Clients 50 Most Influential. In 2019, she was named City Wealth's Woman of the Year. And in 2022, she was voted STEP's Trusted Advisor of the Year. She has spent more than 20 years advising high net worth individuals, families, trustees and family offices through some of the most significant moments of their lives, from succession and estate planning to the sale of businesses, family trusts and questions of legacy. So, Camilla, thank you so much for joining me today. It's lovely to have you with us. And I'm really looking forward to getting into quite a technical discussion here, which our listeners are going to be really interested in, because we're going to be talking all about the charitable benefits and the philanthropic advantages around tax and estate planning. But you describe your job as translating complex law into plain English at complex moments for people. And by that, you mean the tragedies of death and divorce, but also really positive things like sales of businesses. So where does philanthropy normally sit in these conversations? And are you finding that your clients really want to talk about it?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on. It's great to be here. So where does philanthropy sit? It tends to emerge during or before key transactions or life events. So you cantered through those. They might be the sale of a business. It might be death. It might be looking at legacy, succession. In practice, they don't necessarily come to me without that trigger. They then say, right, this is a technical issue, but on a deeper dive, it's becoming values driven. And so some of it will turn on tax and structuring, and some of it really looks at what do they want to get out of their wealth? What are they pushing for? And we have seen a slight uptick in entrepreneurs and the younger generation coming to us earlier. And so it's not just end of life planning. People are being more proactive to integrate philanthropy into their estate planning.
That's really good to hear as somebody very involved in the charity sector, and a charity sector that currently at the moment, a lot of it is struggling. It's really great to hear that people are more and more interested in this. And as an example, when people think, if they've been doing a little bit of philanthropy already and they want to get more serious about it, how do you help them work out what are the right vehicles, whether it should be donor advised fund, whether it should be more of a kind of traditional foundation structure, or just something much simpler?
So first of all, we sit down and we say, what are you actually trying to achieve here? What is your, I guess, intent? Is it tax efficiency that's primarily driving this, or is it legacy? Or impact, which is very important to the Four. So do they want to be hands-on or hands-off? And that will drive the choice of structure. So we then look at, would a normal trust be appropriate? Benefits of the trusts are that you don't have to file so much information, for example, but there's a little bit of a pitfall there in that you become personally liable. Should it be a traditional charitable company? Very flexible, good if you're running a charity, good for operations, but of course a lot of filings. So there's a lot of information out there. And so in more recent times, people have opted for something called the Charitable Incorporated Organisation, a CIO, if they want to have their own private structure. But of course, what about the DAF? The donor advised fund, it is very flexible, a low level admin. You're basically outsourcing it to a third party, and they are becoming increasingly popular. I guess the other option is, of course, giving directly. So just donate some cash to charities of your choice. So various options, and we tend to look at it, what's driving it, and also the intent of the family.
And there's been a massive rise in donor-advised funds, and they're hugely popular. Anna Joss, the founder of Prison and the Gift Fund, has been one of my previous podcast guests. Yes. Why do you think they are so popular and more attractive increasingly than the traditional?
They are so simple and flexible. So if you've got clients who don't want to get bogged down in doing their own compliance, they completely remove the administrative burden. But you can still have some influence. So you can sit on a sort of advisory panel and help guide what investments are being made within the DAF. I think they are popular with entrepreneurs, post-liquidity event, for busy people who don't want to spend time running their charity, but they do want to do something for the greater good. Younger donors quite like them. I would say that they're also super popular with my US-UK clients because they can be exempt both sides of the pond. So there are some tax advantages there in terms of structuring. But yes, we're definitely seeing an increase in DAF usage.
That's the international point is a really interesting one. I hadn't realised that it made it a lot simpler for international giving. You've already mentioned business owners and liquidity events, but if you're a successful business person who's really at a point where they're getting ready to get stuck into philanthropy, what would you advise them is the most effective route? Is it through doing it personally and setting up a DAF or a foundation? Is it through their business? Or when is it time to do a corporate philanthropy structure?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a suck it and see. As ever, you need to look at their particular circumstances. Sometimes we see clients do a pre-sale gift of shares to a charity. And maybe that's going to be their own structure that they've already set up, or a completely different standalone charity. And that would be free of capital gains tax. I would say more often than not, though, we let them sell their shares. And then they've got cash, and then they make a donation getting gift aid, which looks back to the gains that were triggered on the sale of the shares. So it's really running the numbers and looking at what they're wanting to achieve. Corporate giving. So companies can make donations and they can get relief on their corporation tax bill. So that's something to take into account for all companies and all company senior management listening. Yeah. Put your hands in your pocket and get some tax relief. So it really requires us to look at, is the sale imminent? Where are we in the timing of all of this? Looking at income and capital profile of the client. Can they get gift aid? Do they have income? Do they have gains to offset that relief? And their long-term philanthropic goals.
So the whole picture basically needs to be taken into account. This for starters is incredibly useful for people to hear, as there are no
cookie cutter
solutions. People need individual personal advice.
And there are other organisations out there who can help with, say, gifts of shares, share gift, for example. If you're thinking about giving a small amount of shares that you have to charity, then they can help. So.
That's a useful name for people to note, I think. Impact investing and social investment, they're buzzwords that have been around for a couple of decades now, but I think a lot of people still aren't exactly sure what people mean by that. And for those of our listeners that aren't completely au fait with the difference, there are no clear definitions, but basically social investing and impact investing are about where you might sacrifice a certain amount of commercial gain in return for some impact. And there are varying degrees of that. But could you tell us a little bit about how legal and tax structures support this sort of investment, or if they support it really positively, or does it sometimes penalise people as opposed to doing traditional giving to charity?
Yeah, so as you're hinting, the support in the UK is a little behind the times for this type of approach. And I think we're basically still catching up. And that's because charities put the emphasis on charitable good, getting the most for the charity, and not necessarily investment return. And impact investments are blended. So they're wanting to get both. The tax reliefs that we have in this UK are really clear and generous for outright donations of cash. That's the simplest way of doing it. But if you're investing in social projects, it's not so good. What we're seeing is that clients are blending their approach. And so they're doing a little bit of traditional philanthropy with cash gifts. But then they are also looking at the investment side for engagement and longer term change, and then going for social impact investments. I think there's more work to be done in this area to encourage people to get involved.
Yeah, we see some fascinating examples, but it's definitely not the easiest thing to get involved in, I think, impact investing and social investment, because there's a lot of confusion and there has been some negativity around greenwashing or impact washing. This takes me on to the next question, which is, there is, especially in some of the media, a lot of negativity around tax avoidance and the narrative that successful people are using philanthropy as a way to avoid giving money to the tax man. Is this reflective of your closed door conversations with people, or actually is it something that's much more nuanced?
Do you know, I think it's a really simplistic narrative and it might sell some papers or generate some clicks if we're bringing our news feeds up to date. I think that tax is rarely the primary driver when it comes to philanthropy. Yes, it is one of them, and actually we need it to be. So clients who want to get into charity are delighted that there are some tax reliefs that they can avail themselves of. But they generally want to make a meaningful difference. They want to consider reputation, legacy, family values, and they're becoming quite strategic about how they do it. And to say that charities or charitable relief is being exploited purely for tax avoidance, I would say is just incorrect. It is an enabler, which is a good thing. One of the main discussions I have behind those closed doors is about how can they bring on the next generation? What can we do with the young? And particularly where we're talking not just about siblings, but cousins. And it might be trustees saying, look, we've got differences. This is a broad class of family members. How can we bring them together? And a charity is a brilliant way of doing that, or a charitable board. And suddenly you've got collaboration and you've got people around the table getting excited about what philanthropic projects they can support. And actually none of that is tax avoidance.
Yeah, it's absolutely positive motivation. Yeah, that's lovely. I mean, you're clearly encouraging us to realise that there are huge tax benefits to giving to charity, which is not necessarily a bad nudge, essentially. But if you are somebody who is thinking about this, and is starting out in this phase, what is the key information that they need, and what are the sort of questions that they should be going to their advisors with?
So, timing. Get to us early. It will unlock much more significant outcomes if you've planned appropriately. The structure we've discussed, we need to pinpoint exactly which route the client should go down and how they're going to engage with this philanthropic objective they've got, and always take advice. It doesn't need to be from me, but take advice, and not just on the tax side as well. The most efficient route for them might depend on their asset profile, what their long-term goals are. They'll want to retain flexibility. And actually, they might want to just dip their toe in. And I have found that, talking about the four, if I may, it is a wonderful opportunity for my next-gen clients. And I've got two in particular. One, an international client who's been living in the UK for a very long time. She has already inherited and will be due to inherit significant sums of money. And she's just said, Millie, I don't know where to start. I want to get involved with giving back, but I don't know who to go to. And I know that you guys are going to help her enormously with that. And then I have another UK-based client who, again, she's quite vulnerable herself, ultra high net worth, and she wants to get involved, get her hands dirty. So she wants to do some volunteering, but anonymously. And I know that the Four can really pull a very engaging program together, certainly with your Funders Collective, where clients can get together and share their goals and be educated in a very discreet and anonymous way. And then hopefully donate and do some social impact investing, and the world is a better place. So.
Yeah, thank you so much for recommending us. But I think what you touch on there about the nervousness about from people to dip their toes in the water is, we see that a lot. Because you can never go out there and publicly say, I have got money to give away, because you will just be inundated. But giving people the space to grow in confidence and get involved, is particularly, I think, anonymously, is something that we find hugely valuable to budding philanthropists and even experienced philanthropists. They love the idea of being able to be in safe spaces and meet people in a situation where they don't necessarily need to have declared quite what their financial situation is.
They don't feel pressurised.
Yes.
And you're fully independent. You've obviously got the projects you're involved with, but it's very broad. I think that what my clients sometimes find, as soon as people know that they've got some money, I've got this amazing charity. Or I've got this new startup business. Do you want to be an angel investor? And just having something independent, tried, tested, trusted is invaluable.
Yeah, I'm so pleased that you agree with that too, because we find that it really helps people. Let's have a quick conversation about legacies, because we are increasingly finding that people want to talk about that and about bequests. There's the 10% gift that can help you save on inheritance tax, but please tell us a bit more about how that works.
It's really common. So I guess every day of the week, I'm sitting down with a client talking about how to structure their wills. And when this first came in, people were sort of umming and ahhing. But now it is a standard point of discussion. If you give 10% of your net estate away to charity in your will, then the overall rate of inheritance tax comes down by 10%. So instead of a 40% tax rate, you have a 36% tax rate. For those clients that are looking to give to charity anyway, it is an absolute no-brainer. The charity receives a meaningful gift. The family benefit because they're paying less inheritance tax. The client feels self-righteous and just very happy. Overall tax burdens decreased. It's a win-win. And so the majority of our wills will have some guidance in there, directing executors and trustees to take advantage of this if they can.
I mean, from the sector's perspective, it is fantastic if more people know about this and more people get involved in this, particularly at a time when funding to the charity sector is struggling at the moment. Talking about exoduses of funding, has post the changes in the non-dom and the capital gains tax structures, has there been the exodus of millionaires and high net worths from this country that was predicted? And what's your experience sitting where you are?
So my practice is international, and I specialise in advising non-doms on their taxation. And I did see a very high number of clients leave before the new rules came in. I would say that it really depended, as ever, on a case-by-case basis and where they were in their journey and where they were moving to, because there are different benefits of moving to different jurisdictions. But clients went to America, to the Middle East, to Dubai, to Abu Dhabi, Malta, Italy, Switzerland, Portugal. All these countries have really attractive tax and immigration regimes, and these clients are highly mobile and can just pick up sticks and leave. Some are due to leave. I know that some research has been published recently which shows that the number of people leaving is actually decreasing, which is a good thing. But I still have a number of clients who in year 9 will leave, and that's for inheritance tax reasons. So why do people leave? It is tax driven sometimes. They can leave. These international wealthy clients can look at lifestyle, calls on work or family and where they need to be, and they don't need to be in the UK, and that's the sadness of it. And when they do go, if they're not here on the ground at the coalface, are they engaging with gala dinners? Are they really fundraising? And on the traditional side, so not social impact investment, but just fundraising and donations, are they sweating their address books? Well, yes, but from Milan. And that's a sadness that we're missing out on all of that.
We have one partner who told me very openly that you don't need to be a non-dom to pay much less tax. And he has managed to structure his investments and is in a situation, he is retired, but he's in a situation where he is now paying almost no income tax. How does that make sense? Is that a possibility?
Yeah. So there are a few structured investments that you can go into which defer tax and enable you to grow your investments with tax-free roll-up. So one of them is something called an offshore bond. So an offshore wrapper, and that is where you put capital in, and then whilst it's invested within that wrapper, there's no income tax or capital gains tax, but you can take 5% of the original amount invested every year. And so it might be that that person is living off tax-free 5% withdrawals from his offshore bond. And he has reduced his reporting because you don't need to report anything. And he is not paying tax on what he receives on an annual basis. But he needs to be aware that if he is UK tax resident, when it redeems at the very end of, say, the 20-year period, any of the gain still there will be subject to income tax at that point, unlike other capital investments which trigger capital gains tax. So generally, people then go non-resident before they redeem the investment. The other pitfall, since you're talking about tax and I'm on a roll, is that you need to look at the rules of where you're moving to. So the destination jurisdiction may not like these structured products. And so if you are thinking about going into them and then leaving the UK, check the rules of the other jurisdiction as well.
That is a great, both call to action and also warning, I think, for people. Do you think that there is generally a drive with the changes that are happening in the tax and the change in government that we had a couple of years ago? Do you think this is going to be a net gain or a net loss for the philanthropic space?
When there are tax changes and when individuals are paying more in tax, they have less disposable income to give to charity. That's the truth of it. Will they shift towards, I don't know, privately directed philanthropy in a different way? Or I can't say, but if people have less money to give, they will give less. And if they're not living here, they won't be focused on charities here.
Yeah, I mean, that's completely straightforward and obvious negative impact. Going back to something a bit more, hopefully more positive, you're working with lots of families across generations, as you've already mentioned. Are you seeing changes in how the younger generation are approaching wealth? And is that having an impact on what they want to do philanthropically?
Yeah. So it's an easy question, and actually it is really positive. So the younger generation, they love transparency. They love to get involved. So hands-on, like my client that's saying she wants to actually volunteer before she sees where she's going to invest or donate. And above all, it's this idea of having a sense of social purpose. And it's not just about as regards family wealth. So highly important. They've inherited this wealth, or they might have generated it as a young entrepreneur, and they want to do good and they have that sense of social purpose. But I would say the younger generations have it throughout all aspects of their life, and that they want to have social purpose, full stop. So I see it with the junior solicitors, that it is a little different now. And we have to recognise that at work, that everybody wants a little bit more autonomy, more transparency, and they want to give back in a way that other generations might have not so readily.
Less focused on this. Yeah. No, I think that totally ties in that everything that we are seeing and the businesses that we work with, who are all very keen on helping to give their staff really meaningful volunteering opportunities. It does feel like a massively positive shift. If you were sitting next to somebody at a dinner party who was saying, I really want to start thinking more about philanthropy and about how to make the most of my structures and my whole setup with my family wealth, who would you say is the best person for them to talk to first? Is it their wealth management advisor? Is it their tax advisor? Where is generally a good place to start?
So I think they're probably simultaneous conversations that happen, and you need to take advice early. So we've got a whole charities team that can help guide clients into how they're going to structure their philanthropy projects, and that's critical because you need to put it in place at the outset and get it right and don't trip up. But also you need to know, where are you going with this? And what are you investing in? And who are you supporting? And are you just grant making, or are you doing something a little different? And maybe the four can help with that. For example, shameless plug. But and then Anna at Prism is so knowledgeable about DAFs. And if that looks like it's going to be the appropriate choice, then yeah. There isn't a first port of call. You must speak to your tax lawyer, your accountant. I think you just need to get the conversations going early.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. Yeah, simultaneous conversations.
Yeah,
started now, basically. No timeline present. If there is one thing that you could change in the legal or the tax frameworks that we're living in, what would it be to create more of a philanthropic drive?
So given everything we've been talking about today, and given that I am a tax lawyer, I think that I would like to see greater reward, greater tax reliefs for, and I'm probably going to use the wrong phrase here, but conscious capital. So whether it's impact investment or otherwise, we see it done for business relief, so business property relief, the alternative investment market, EIS, SEIS investments. And in the offshore world, we had something called business investment relief, where you could bring funds in tax-free, provided they were going into a qualifying investment. You paid no tax. So I would really love to see some form of tax relief for impact investment. And I think that would generate a lot more donations into the sector and just generally improving the greater good.
Camilla, thank you so much for joining me today. I think this conversation has been extremely enlightening and revealing. And for a lot of the audience that we have, they will find it extremely helpful to have heard this and to basically now have a better idea of what questions they should be asking of their advisors. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me.
And a sincere thank you to all of you for listening. If you have enjoyed this episode and would like to hear more about philanthropy and social impact, please do follow, share and subscribe to the Brace for Impact podcast. Listen on all the major listening platforms or watch the videos on our website, the4.org. I look forward to seeing you all again soon.